Many would assume that a great developer is one whose games get the media attention and brings in the big bucks that help them keep making games year after year. But for me, what makes the difference between a good developer and a great one isn't how many copies of a game they sell or how much money they bring in. No, for me, it is that they continue to thrive within the industry while keeping their games refreshing and different as opposed to doing the same thing over and over again. It is that which makes a great developer. The developer with no limitations on creativity, nor have that creativity blunted by marketing trends. That is what makes a great developer. And today we're taking a look at a game by one such developer. An indie developer who since 2003 has been making a broad range of games not just across various genres, but platforms too. And while many came and are now gone, 10 Ton Limited are still here and going strong. Undead Horde is an action game with elements of RPG, strategy and hack and slash. It is being developed and self-published by indie veterans 10 Tons Limited, previously known for their titles Crimson Land and Tesla vs Lovecraft, just to name two. The game released in Steam Early Access March 6, 2019 with a full release estimated in roughly 2 months' time. Undead Horde is a different experience from the twin-stick shooters that fans of 10 Tons generally know. It may be a departure from the standard affair, but Undead Horde offers gripping and exciting gameplay that takes many elements from different genres, over-the-top action and plenty of humour as you journey to take over the world. However, despite the extremely promising impressions, the game does suffer from difficulty and equipment imbalancing that right now lessens the overall gameplay experience slightly. In Undead Horde you take on the role of Orson the Necromancer. Orson has remained trapped within an urn for millennia after living defeated the undead. That is until one day, a hapless chicken accidentally releases the Necromancer from his prison. Now freed from his imprisonment, Orson sets out to take over the entire kingdom of the living, destroying everything and everyone along the way. The only one standing in his way is a paladin called Good Helper. As is to be expected of a game by 10 Tons, the plot is minimalistic, created for nothing more than the purpose of making a setting and world for the events to take place. But the whole introduction to the game along with its characters really sets the mood, giving a sense of silliness and lightheartedness that few even attempt, let alone pull off. The character of Orson is likeable, even if he doesn't have much of a personality. He's one of those characters that is just deliciously evil with quotes like "Arise my minions and join the Horde," with his dark and somewhat deep tone of voice. He just sets the mood of the game and really makes you feel like an evil necromancer who is setting out to conquer the land. Overall, the plot is simple and minimalistic, but it does the exact job it is intended to, and the character of Orson, while too is basic, helps impact the role and carry the game thanks to some well created quotes that are very well voice acted. The objective of Undead Horde is to conquer and claim all the lands one by one across the entire kingdom of the living, there being 33 in total, but only about half are currently available in the game. You claim the lands by destroying every building and killing every enemy on the map. The gameplay of Undead Horde will be classified as that of an action game overall, but does have elements of other genres including RPG, strategy and hack and slash. The RPG elements of the game revolve around leveling up and development of your character along with a Diablo style equipment and inventory management. The strategy elements are where you need to choose what type of units you bring with you, taking their strengths and weaknesses into consideration and using them to your advantage. And then the hack and slash elements are where you and your units pretty much mow through the living, tearing them to shreds, again in a similar style to Diablo, both from perspectives of camera and combat. How Undead Horde works is that you move your way through each of the lands, conquering them one by one. As a necromancer you can raise the dead, bringing back fallen enemies to life as undead minions under your command. The number of units under your command at once is dependent on your command stat along with what the power of each of the units is under your command. Your command power increases each time you level up, but we will get to that shortly. Having the limit on the command power stops you from becoming this unstoppable force. It is pretty well balanced in accordance with the strength of the units under your command. Never throughout the game did I feel I was overpowered or underpowered in this regard. As you progress through each land you generally must complete a specific quest before being able to progress. These quests generally consist of rescuing a specific character that plays some form of role in your conquest, or obtaining a certain item, or killing a particular enemy or something along those lines. Along with the main quest there are also sometimes side quests. These act as an additional task that grant you extra items, gold and experience throughout your journey. The side quests add to the overall content of the game, giving additional tasks to help liven things up and stops the whole claiming of the lands becoming a monotonous exercise. The problem with the side quests right now is that they are not all that rewarding from the perspective of items that you receive. More often than not you will already have an item that is more powerful than anything that you're given as a quest reward. It isn't something that ruins the side quests, as the gold and experience alone make them worthwhile, but having actual items that are of use to you too would really make them stand out. Throughout your journey you will be moving to and from the Crypt of the Necromancer. The crypt is essentially your base of operations, so to speak. You return here to hand in the deeds to claim lands to the commander for rewards, which are dropped upon claiming a land, respawn if you die, replenish the numbers of your horde, and buy new equipment from the shops once you've unlocked them. Near the centre of the crypt are statues that represent the enemies that you encounter throughout the game. After you've killed a certain amount of a specific type of enemy, the statue will unlock, and you can add them to your ranks of your horde. At first you'll only have weak units like chickens and peasants available to you, but as you progress and face new enemy types, they will unlock and be available to you to add to your army from there on in. The mechanic of the statues is quite neat. In nearly every level there is a portal back to the crypt, allowing you to go back and reinforce your horde numbers when things are looking grim. Though doing so without completely wiping out a map will result in enemies respawning, but any destroyed buildings will not return. The one issue that the mechanic has, however, is that when you meet a new unit type, they are quite overpowered compared to the units that are available to you at that time. It isn't a problem that is immediately noticeable, but by the time you get to about level 10, it begins to show. Because of the major spike in strength between the new enemies and the units you have available, you end up having to try and kill as many enemies as possible before your horde gets wiped out. This in return forces you to go back to the crypt to get more units of the statues and repeat this process over and over until you kill enough of the new enemy type to unlock their statue. It isn't a major issue that ruins the experience of the game, but it majorly slows down the flow of it, making it feel like a bit of a grind that you need to repeat several times in the game's current short duration. It boils down to the overall balancing and enemy scaling of the game, something that is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this preview. But with Undead Horde being in early access, such issues are to be expected. Playing a game that has not long been in early access and not expecting balanced issues would be naive. But nevertheless, it is an imbalance that right now hurts the overall experience to a small degree, especially with Undead Horde having faster paced gameplay. Along with the statues for the enemy types, there are additional statues that you unlock later on that allow you to hire the undead versions of bosses that you've defeated. These bosses are extremely powerful units that have a lot of health and damage, but require a large amount of command points in order to have in your horde. Unlike the standard statues, however, getting one of these tanks to destruction costs quite a bit of gold. The tougher the boss is, the more gold needed. Hiring the bosses into your army is something that you do only when the going starts to get tough, as opposed to becoming a regular addition. The issue with these units is pretty much the same as that of the ordinary units. Their strength and usefulness quickly fade away the further you progress in the game. The once powerful Sir Kill-A-Lot, for example, by the time you unlock the ability to hire him, basic enemies can quickly take him out, and you might as well forget about having him going up against another boss. It makes what's supposed to be the game's most powerful units feel underwhelming. The moment you unlock the ability to hire them, you think to yourself, I'm going to kick some ass now. But then they end up being so weak, you don't end up hiring them again. Again, it is down to the balance. It is something that is going to be fixed throughout the early access phase, but it makes what is supposed to be an exciting and game-changing mechanic feel anticlimactic and unsatisfactory. Then you have the shops. You unlock the various shops by rescuing specific characters throughout your journey, who in return set up shop at the crypt, allowing you to buy new items from them for a price, of course. They also occasionally give you the odd side quest here and there too. As you level up, you can upgrade the level of each of the shops to the same as that of yours, for a price. Doing so increases the number of items they have on display at any one time, along with better items spawning. You can also shuffle the items available for a small price, getting rid of the items on display and spawning new ones. Right now the shops are well designed and easy to navigate, but the scaling and power of the items in the shops compared to the shop's level isn't great. Even at levels as high as 8 or 9, the shops aren't offering much in the way of items that will be better than what you already have. Throughout my entire time with the game, I think I only bought maybe 1-2 items from the shops at most. But like with the overall balance and polish of the game, it is something the developer is intending on fixing before the full release. The workings of the crypt are generally well done, with the exception of the overall balance of the gameplay. The layout and general design of the map are well done, making it easy to navigate around and remember where everything is, with there being separate areas for each mechanic. So how exactly does the general gameplay of Undead Horde work? Your horde will follow behind you, and using the spacebar you can instruct them to attack any enemies in sight or gather at your position and trail behind. Orson has multiple forms of attacks. He has a melee weapon you can use by clicking the left mouse button, and a magical staff using the right mouse button. You can also equip up to 2 rings, each having a magical power of their own, and are binded to the number keys 1 and 2. The staff and rings require mana in order to use, with the more powerfully affected the item, the more mana it requires to use, along with each having a cooldown period. Your mana restores slowly over time and can also be replenished by picking up water orbs that are found by destroying blue vases and wells. As you slay your enemies, you can raise any that are within your raised dead casting area, up to the command points limits. The raised dead ability has a cooldown timer of about 10 seconds, so certain items can lower that slightly, allowing you to replenish the numbers of your army faster. However, if at any point you're being attacked, the ability will be interrupted, so you do need to make sure you have enough units protecting you while you use the ability. This side of the gameplay is well balanced, as the cooldown stops you from abusing the mechanic. mechanic. It results in you having to be tactical about when and where you use the ability, forcing you to make the most out of each time you use it. Use it carelessly and you'll find yourself stuck without a horde and extremely vulnerable, often leading to you dying. The general combat and given directions of horde are very easy to learn and use. They consist of a minimal amount of controls, with them being very similar to other titles, where they quickly become instinctive. And while the gameplay in general is imbalanced, the use of the raising dead ability is well done. When attacking a town or village, there are always enemy units guarding it with buildings scattered throughout. Each time you kill a squad of enemies, another squad will begin to respawn from one of the buildings. But the timer for the spawning of a new squad can be stopped if the building is being attacked. Having the buildings respawn enemy squads results in the combat being more than just about hack and slash. It adds an element of strategy to it where you need to focus on the buildings whilst also having enemy squads attacking you and your horde. So you need to be tactical in how you deal with the situation, as you need to focus on enemy squads, your horde, raising the dead to replenish numbers, and the enemy buildings. It adds a layer of depth to the combat that works very well and adds much needed form of challenge to the game. Without it, it'd be nothing more than a repetitive hack and slash that would quickly get very boring. Later in the game you also come across guard towers, which have a wide radius to shoot at you and deal a lot of damage. They add another element to the overall strategy to combat and become the main priority over units when dealing with them due to their high damage output. Overall, the combat to the game is fast paced, adrenaline filled and addictive. It presents a refreshing experience that, when mixed with frequent new environments and enemy types, keeps the gameplay fun and exciting from the very beginning until the end, leaving you eager for the rest of the campaign to be released. Then there is the character development. As you kill enemies and complete quests, you gain experience. Once you've gained enough experience, you level up. Upon leveling up, you get to choose one of 3 upgrades that are offered to you. Each of these upgrades grant a bonus to Orson's damage, maximum mana, maximum health and command points, but each of the upgrades specialise in one particular stat increase. These roles generally consist of a warrior role, a magic role and a commanding role. The warrior gives a dramatic increase to Orson's overall health and damage, while the magic upgrade gives a massive increase to mana, and the command upgrade gives a bigger increase to his command points. So depending on what type of build you want Orson to be will determine what upgrades you choose. If you want your horde to do most of the damage, you should focus more on the command upgrades, while if you want him to dish out plenty of damage and have high amounts of health, then you should focus more on the warrior upgrades. And if you want Orson to be more of a supporting role to your horde using magic, then choosing the magic upgrades would be the better option. The character development of Undead Horde isn't anything complex, in fact it is about as simple as it gets. But it is nevertheless effective, where you get to choose what type of role Orson plays in his conquest, be it one in particular or a mixture of everything. The choice is yours and each has its own uses. The items in the game work similar to that of the Diablo games, where they are randomly generated upon being awarded to the player or dropped by enemies. Upon being generated, each item has a rarity attached to it with the potential of having bonus effects. White being normal and having no magical properties, blue is magic and has 1 magical property, yellow is rare and has up to 2 magical properties, and purple is epic and has up to 3 magical properties. What magical bonuses the items have are entirely random and range from vampirism with either health or mana, different types of damage that affect enemies over time, increasing the health of specific types of units, and so on and so forth. There are 7 equipment slots in total, the previously mentioned melee weapon and staff slots and the 2 ring slots. But along with those there is also a slot for amulets, 1 for skulls and 1 for tomes. Unlike the other slots, amulets, skulls and tomes are passive items, with their sole purpose being to grant Orson the bonuses that they possess. Unlike in a lot of hack and slash style games, Undead Horde allows players to sell unwanted items for gold directly from the inventory screen, so there is no need to go back to the crypt and sell unwanted items to the shops. It is an absolute godsend. As always with an item system like this, the random generation of the items adds excitement to the game, as you never know what kind of item you're going to get next. And it does force a player to choose between general DPS and swapping out items for a bonus in exchange for another, adding in a strategic depth to it. But right now the amount of bonus types is quite limited, where you regularly get items that have the same bonus as ones you already have. I do hope to see more variation in types of bonuses the items can have come to full release. As a whole, the gameplay to Undead Horde is very well designed. It is fast paced, adrenaline filled action with decent character development and an exciting item system, and fun combat that is a combination of hack and slash mixed with strategy. My only criticism with the game right now is its balance, where the scaling of units versus enemies and the weapons are quite off at the moment. Not to mention the shops being pretty useless right now. But other than that, the gameplay of Undead Horde combines this many different elements together in perfect harmony to bring you a refreshing and unique experience that no other game can quite compare to. It is fun, light-hearted and a bit silly, but most of all, an absolute joy to play from beginning to end that leaves you craving for more. The atmosphere to Undead Horde fits in perfectly with the general nature of the game, from the main menu theme to the exploration music to the combat and general feel of the environments. There's a dark tone, but not one that is oppressive. Instead, the dark tone is combined with light-heartedness and almost playful nature at times, where it feels more like a horror-themed kids cartoon in some ways. It gives off that horror vibe for the necromancy theme of the game, but never is in an atmosphere that takes itself seriously, instead embracing the over-the-top design of the game. It just adds to the experience and proves that just because you play as an evil character, doesn't mean the game still can't be light-hearted and comical at times. I think it's safe to say 10 Tons Limited have done it again. Undead Horde is a great game even now in early access. Its characters are fun, the gameplay is fast paced and addictive, and the atmosphere and general nature of the game are light-hearted and doesn't take itself seriously. Despite the game's problems with the balancing of enemies and items, the overall enjoyment of the game is only lessened to a very small degree. And while Undead Horde has a lot of elements to it, it is still a very accessible game for pretty much anyone to play, something that 10 Tons have mastered over the years. The early access build of Undead Horde has left a great impression, and if this is the quality 10 Tons are presenting now, I can't wait to see the finished product. With lots of improvements, the final levels and a new game plus still to come, Undead Horde's release is something to definitely get excited for. Whether you are an action buff, a strategic master or a hack and slasher, it doesn't matter, as Undead Horde caters to all. And with only an estimated 2 months before release, you won't have long to wait for the full release of the game. If you're a fan of 10 Ton games or you're simply looking for a game where you take on the role of a villain, Undead Horde is definitely a game you should consider checking out.